Welcome to A World Gone Mad. I am your host, Christian McMillan, and I hope you enjoy the scheduled programming. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're here in A World Gone Mad today with Josh Hogan.
In A World Gone Mad.
That's right. Why don't you talk about your career as a drummer and a musician?
I want to talk about dick pills because we were talking earlier about
Okay, we can get right into dick pills.
Have you ever experimented with dick pills?
No, but my biggest curiosity is because a lot of guys take them as pre-workout. I think they say it helps their pump.
You know what? That's news to me. I tried some pre-workout once. I had never tried it before. Went to the gym, did it. I went to see my girlfriend afterwards, and I had a fucking crazy huge boner. And even she was like, "Wow, this is fucking
impressed with your dong.
This is a little much."
Okay.
And I was like, it was exciting.
Nice.
I'm a massage therapist, and I made friends with a gentleman at a party. I wouldn't say friends, but he confided in me all this really personal information.
Okay.
So this guy's like I guess in Manitoba, when you go, he told me this anyway, when you go to school to be a firefighter, it's lumped in with school where you also get trained to be a police officer.
Okay.
I'd never heard of this. So anyway, he was telling me this, and he was kind of going through all the traumatic events that had happened because he'd started as a police officer in Manitoba, and then he moved back to Ontario where he wanted to be a firefighter. So anyway, he was telling me all this crazy shit that was going on in his life and how he like beat up homeless people and he tried to kill himself. And
okay,
it was at a party where we're all enjoying each other's company and we're having drinks, and I don't know him that well. It's really not a party vibe. Like
yeah, he's killing it.
Super, super dark, disturbing stuff. So anyway, and I'm like, I'm kind of partying. I'm in the zone, and I'm kind of drunk. And I turn to him. I'm like, thanks for confiding in me, but like, why are you telling me this? He's like, because you're a therapist. I'm like, I'm a massage therapist. I'm not a real therapist. It was just bizarre for a complete stranger to dump his load right on my lap. Suicide, his wife leaving him, beating up homeless people.
You're like, I give rub downs, bro.
I give body rubs, baby. So why I brought this up is because later on that night in front of everyone, he's like, hey, man, do you want some Cialis? And I was like, that's hilarious.
Is he asking you to fuck?
Well, this is the thing. I said that to some friends who know him and know me, and they're like, that's so weird. Like, who the hell at 3 a.m. offers a pretty much stranger dick pills? Yeah. So anyway, I took him home. I think I tried one just to see what it was like when I was by myself, and I got a boner, and I wrote it out, and that was it.
Did you feel like the erection was there against your will? Or would it only have come on if you induced it through some stimulus after?
I thought, so I've never done Viagra, but I thought it was just going to be a fucking rager, right out the gate, uncontrollable. And it wasn't.
Yep.
But it was strong.
I have some friends who were disappointed when they took it the first time. They're like, I'm sitting there waiting for this rock hard dick to get started, and it just never came.
Yeah, I think we're sold something. But then again, maybe that's because we're young men who have dicks that work. And, older dudes, maybe it affects them differently. I do know that it was initially made, to help with blood pressure, I think.
Right, it's a vasodilator, I think.
Because in school we learned that a lot of pills, you'll see someone will be on an antidepressant, and it's maybe not because they're depressed, it's because they do have some vascular condition.
Right.
Pills usually have two or three different uses, right?
Totally.
So yeah, dick pills.
Yeah, big Blue Chew.
Chew. And so like, how do we get a sponsorship?
That's right. We're reaching out to Blue Chew. We want you.
I wonder how that happens. Like, do you maybe all these comedians and all these popular people that have podcasts, do they reach out to the company, or does the company see the traction that they're getting?
That's what I think. I think they talk shit, and then Viagra gum company comes along, and they're like, hey, we like your stuff. You want to promote cock pills in gum form?
I kind of love that. That's the thing. Like, you remember when John Jones was popped with the UFC fighter?
Totally.
For pissing hot, and he was like, "Oh, I took some gas station dick pills."
Yeah. He had a Clomid surge.
Gas station dick pills is a good like a side project name.
There was one broad in the UFC. I can't remember who, but
One broad over there.
One broad.
One of these dames over there.
But she said she had nandrolone in her system from a bad burrito.
Oh man, I saw that.
So fucked.
I mean,
I don't believe it.
And like, did they expect us to believe it? And how strongly did they believe their own shit? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have a burrito and this happens, to like lie to your trainers or to lie to the president of that company or the public who are all paying money to see this event, and to bullface look at a camera and say, I had a bad burrito. It's just preposterous. So hopefully she does believe it, and hopefully it is true. But that's like the weakest excuse I've ever heard, and it's hilarious.
I would hope it's not true, just because imagine you were a training athlete and then that cow that you just ate was so loaded with nandrolone that it somehow was still in the meat when you ate it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It seems like such an absurd stretch that I don't even know how possible that is.
But then you start to think about like what is in our food, right? And being in Canada, it's like I'd like to think we have a pretty good understanding what we're eating, but when you get down to the States, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been to the States in a while, but like once you cross the border and you go to like the gas station, it's like just like bagels with cheese and egg on them that have been there for 4 days.
Straight up.
And the dude behind the register is like 400 pounds, and you're like, something's going on here, you know? And you're eating like a maniac.
Straight up.
Or the supersize everything, so that's just what it is, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working at a ski lodge. I was doing massage therapy there.
Right.
And, taking care of these rich-ass ski people that were coming to heli ski. And that's just basically you get in a helicopter, you fly to the top of the Rockies, and you slide down. And I gained 15 pounds there because we had like 4 meals a day. I just couldn't stop eating at first. It was rich food. And it's funny, you know, I was like a skinny kid, and I never really put on weight. And then, you know, you get to be an adult and you go to the gym and you reach your comfortable. I think everyone's got like a comfortable weight, right? Like, what are you right now?
Probably 180, give or take. It'll vary on the week.
I was at
even.
like 190 for years.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't really get past that. And that's fine. And I'm like 5'11", so that makes sense, you know? I mean, technically that's overweight, but that's mainly muscle, right? So, but here it was like I like went up to 205, which is hilarious because you feel it in your joints, right? And you feel it in your feet, and your body moves a little slower. But I just like when there's amazing food and it's like free and you're just fed it every day, and it's not chips and stuff. It's like salmon and lamb and steaks and all this stuff. It's funny to, you know, have a weird maybe not a weird relationship, but everyone's got body things, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are heavy and they want to lose weight. Some people are light and they want to gain it, or you experiment with it and you see what feels good, right? But it's just so funny to be in a position where you can eat all you want and it's really good, and then you're just like, yeah, this is how people get fat for sure.
Oh, for sure.
You're just packing on the pounds. So I'm hoping those melt off soon.
Yeah, sometimes you have an over access to food here in a first world country.
Yeah. But if it's really good, and yeah, you're like, well, I'm not here. Like, I'm here on a contract, so it's like 4 months. I'm like, well, I'll stop eating like this later on.
Right.
But then that job entailed me kind of being around that area, and because we were on lockdown in BC, the gym wasn't open for about a month up there, so we had to take weights to our room and stuff and try to pretend like that was fun to exercise. And going outside wasn't an option because there were some like -20 days, so it was just it's funny when you're in a weird secluded position and then you just have all this access to food and alcohol and really not much access to like health stuff, right? Like any kind of stuff. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. So that's why I'm here, essentially. I wanted to say. So this is why I'm in BC, and you and your lovely girlfriend took me in.
That's right. That's right. That's how we do.
And thank you again. And that's like, man, that's pretty awesome because I look at friggin' hotels out here and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Woo.
No, I figured I'd offer.
It's a lot of money to stay out here. And if Eric Moretin hears this, I was supposed to see you out here and go see Code Orange in a couple weeks, but my stuff ended earlier, so I'm not going to make it, sadly. Well, actually, I don't think what's the last concert you've seen?
Oh, that's what I was just thinking about. It's so hard to remember now.
It's so messed up, eh? Like the concept of time and anything that's happened in the past. Like I was talking to one of my chefs at this job earlier, and it was March 17th was just the other day, and I was like, hey, happy COVID day, because I remember in Ontario, that's when my clinic that I work at closed down.
Yeah, that was the 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
And he was like, no, it hasn't been 2, it's been 3. And I'm like, no, 2020, or 2020 rather, to 21, that's 1, and then 21 to 22. And he's like, oh my God. And I find that my concept of time has just gone out the window. And I've always known the dates, the times, the years, every experience. And it's just, it's kind of floated away. So
Totally. Do you remember your last show vividly?
Well, I played one. So I played drums with that Cheyenne Hovorka lady. She's a native artist in Ontario.
Okay.
She does like country stuff. So we did, last summer we did a, what was the concert series? It's that marina, the one down at the marina, Summer in the Parks.
Right.
I can't remember. Something like that. Anyway, but instead of doing it there, we did it on a rooftop parking garage on Court
This is
Street.
in Thunder Bay.
Yeah. So it was a nice summer night, and we played, and it was fun. There were like 50 people allowed to be there. Everyone had masks on. That was bizarre. But it was really enjoyable. And playing a show again was like, oh, my God. Like, this feels good, right? But pretty weird. So they, like, videoed it, and I guess they played it because we have a drive-in theater now back in Thunder Bay. So they played it out there, and all this stuff. It was cool to have some kind of semblance of something normal.
Right.
But so that's the last one that I really remember playing, going to a show. And I'm not talking about like real, like I'm talking about like a real loud show, like a hardcore show.
Yeah,
or a
something
metal
memorable
show.
that you went out of your way.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, most vividly, I can think of, I went and saw Pig Destroyer. That was the last time me and Moreton went out.
Nice.
Either that or when Daughters was here in Vancouver and they played with, I think it's Lignata, or what the...
Lingua Ignata.
It's is that what it's called?
Yeah, that was Lex's girlfriend, and then he just got outed for apparently being super abusive to her. But
I saw the whole controversy.
Yeah, it was a
Who's
mess.
Lex?
That's the singer from Daughters.
Right.
People would say that he was really like a sex addict, like a deranged person. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of something that I've followed really closely because that band's really important to me. I saw them first in 2007 in Toronto when they were opening for Pelican.
Okay.
At the Mod Club. So like 800 capacity room. And it was the craziest show I've seen in my life. Mm-hmm. Lex was walking around with long black stringy hair and this white... It was like a white leather suit and like dress shoes that were pointy. He's the only person in the crowd that looked like that. I didn't know Daughters at all. And he's walking around and I see this creepy, like 6'2", skinny, weird looking guy. I'm like, oh man, Toronto's got a weird music scene. Like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
He goes on stage and he's the singer of Daughters. The guitarist kind of reminds me of my guitarist, Justin from Norris. He's like this littler guy, but he's got this woman's dress shirt with shoulder pads, and he's nipple riding his guitar, and he's going, and it's like all over the place. Lex gets on stage, he takes a big drink of water, and he shoves the mic in his mouth, and he goes, ooh, and he like spits all this water out, and they have like a projector on the side of the stage is projecting images from what was that space shuttle that burst into flames midair? The Challenger or something? It was like early 90s.
Right.
And it was this catastrophic launch that NASA did, and everyone was watching, and it was just right before everyone's eyes where all these people died on board.
Right.
So they're like playing that in the background. They're playing this music I've never heard before. They have a merch design of a t-shirt, and it's vaginas with bat wings.
Okay.
And it's all yellow. It was just the weirdest. And okay, the mosh pit... The show was packed, but it was just two guys in this big circle that was open. Two beefy, roided up dudes in tight black t-shirts beating the shit out of each other. So Daughters is playing on stage while these guys are beating each other up, and everyone's confused because no one sounds like that band. And this is around the Hell Songs era, so it's like the weirdest. It's not like screamy or aggressive. It's just really unsettling, and it's scary sounding. And I was just like... I couldn't believe my eyes or ears. So I remember kind of showing that band to some of the dudes back in town and people being like, wow, this is crazy. And then they blew up with that last album, and then I guess all those allegations came out, and I don't know.
Yeah, right around the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the album came out maybe 2 years prior, and then this stuff just started going down, and I don't know. I have no idea what happened. I talk a little online to the guitarist Nick Sadler, so him and I were going back for the direct messages, and he says it's not true. It's not, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But Sorry. So, yeah.
So it's allegations presently.
Yeah, I mean, you want to believe that side, and you know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure that you take everything into consideration, but
sure,
you got to go through the process, so.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up. But back to live experiences. So that would be a really cool show to see.
That's the last thing I vividly remember. And what is her project called again? I forget.
Lingua Ignata or something?
Lingua Ignata,
I gave her a shot because everyone kept putting her
The
out.
live performance was really cool.
I can't, not Sinner Get Ready is the newest one, but the one before that.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it was on everyone's year-end list, and I put it on one day at my house, and I put it super loud, and it's really like orchestral but depressing, and it's her howling into a mic, and I know it's really arty.
It's witchy
but
shit.
It kind of gave me the creeps, and I couldn't, it was just made me uncomfortable, which is awesome because that's art and that's her expressing herself.
It's a very artistic performance.
Yeah.
She had these pieces of plastic that look kind of like garbage pieces of plastic all hung up, and she would go behind them and it would reflect her shadows
That's very cool.
into the plastic with the lighting set up properly to do so.
Caligula is that album's name.
Ran around and did her witchy shit. But yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, no, I just thought it was ghoul. It was ghouly.
No, and I love when
evil.
heavy music does something like that, right? Transformative in a way. I mean, hardcore shows can be fun because you're just blowing off steam and you're crowd surfing and you're screaming into a mic. It's really cool when an artist like her does that. It's more of a performance thing. So I don't know if it translates all the time perfectly to an album, but people say that it's great. I wish I was more into it.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that could come out and I'm like, I wish I was more into it, or like, why can't I get it? I don't like to force myself to like something, but sometimes you do need to give something a shot a little more often than not. But I don't know if I really enjoy music that makes me super uncomfortable.
Really?
All the time.
I got to be in the right state of mind, but I do love things that put me in a, disturbed state of mind even.
I like a dark mood, but like that Daughters album, there's like, some of it's so uncomfortable, and I really liked it because Nick Sadler, the guitarist, was going on podcasts talking about it, and someone told him it sounds like the soundtrack to someone having a PTSD, like anxiety attack.
Yeah.
Which is like imagine that, how when we came up in bands, you'd be like, oh, it sounds like Queens of the Stone Age mixed with blah, 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 and all this stuff. Yeah. But imagine being like, what's your band sound like? Oh, it sounds like someone having a crippling panic attack.
Well, have you ever been fucked by a knife?
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like that.
I like that. So I don't know. No, it is cool. And this, I guess the point is, what I was getting at is the conversation about seeing a concert.
Yeah.
You get offers to see a show, maybe like there's that Wake the Giant festival back in Thunder Bay. That Spanish lady was singing, and Third Eye Blind or something. And I'm like, I don't care. And so,
right.
And they're like, oh, I want to go see this. I'm like, well, it'd be cool to see. But I'm like, I want something that's going to beat the hell out of me. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So like Furnace Fest was happening in Alabama, and that had like Turnstile, it had like Glassjaw. It was like a throwback to all the old bands.
Were you thinking of going to Alabama?
I had it lined up.
Yeah.
And then I waited too long for flights. I always do this. But at the same time, I work in the health profession, and if I go to Alabama in October, had the worst COVID rate in the entire United States. You still had to pay to get tested to go. I was gonna volunteer. I had that all squared away because that's a good way to meet people too, right?
Straight up.
So I was stoked for that, but it was like, man, if I go down there, I get sick. I'm stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks. It's a ton of money out. Then I'm going to come back and everyone's going to be like, oh, there's that guy who works in a clinic and he might have, the like stigma behind it, obviously.
Sure.
And I put
living your
myself
life
in harm's
during
way.
COVID. Yeah.
And then I look at the photos from it and I'm not there, and I'm kind of glad, like, because the flights, everything all included was going to be like $2,000, and I'm like, it's just a little too much. If it was $1,000, that'd be fine, but. So I'm looking at the photos and no one has masks on, and I'm like, I want to, you almost want to hear like what happened after. Like, did everyone get there? Because that was that weird time when people were like, I don't know. You saw pictures of like festivals and baseball games and like no one has a mask on, but then everyone out in schools and shit have a mask on, and you're like, what is this reality we're living in? It was just hard to know, right? I think it's better to not put yourself in harm's way. But it was a ripping concert. It looked like I checked it out all weekend. I was like, oh fuck, I wish I saw that, but oh well.
Yeah, there's a couple I've looked at. I think Converge was playing one in Texas,
Very cool.
headlining amongst a bunch of awesome bands. I can't even remember what the show was called now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. And then Ryan and I was telling you the other night, I got him tickets to go see that Tid the Season with Every Time I Die, and
right.
That was going to be cool in Buffalo, but then I got this job and it was December, so I had to come up to do this. And I wish we would have seen it because it was their last 2 shows that they ever did before they friggin' blew apart. But oh well, you know.
Yeah, straight up. How's it feel for ETID to fall apart?
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty close to home. I know we were talking about it the other day, and it's just
totally.
It's really weird. Okay, when you see someone with mental health problems, like Keith was saying things that didn't sound like him, there's a mental health thing there, and he's being open about that. So it's like, it's really hard when you see then the fans picking sides, and it's like, that's not fair. Like that, him and his brother started that band, and they're pulling it apart, and then fans are trying to call him names or call Jordan names. It's just like, it's watching like your family crumble, and it's really disrespectful, and it's kind of gross.
Well, and it's literally their family. Is what the most interesting part was to me.
And it's because you grow up with this music, and it means so much, and it's fun, and it brings back so many good memories. I remember I lived in Ottawa with my girlfriend at the time years ago, over a decade ago, and I didn't have a lot of friends there. I tried to make friends. It just didn't work. I had a night job at a Giant Tiger. That sucked. Mm-hmm. And I would come home on Saturday morning, and I'd buy a 6-pack of Budweiser, and I'd put on that Shit Happens DVD. And it felt like I was with like buddies, and I could just laugh.
For sure.
Because I
love that DVD.
She was like in bed, or she was doing her thing, and I was just like pissed off because I was there. I had no reason to be there, and I wanted to be back home playing with my band. And I just put on this DVD, and I could just laugh, and it never got old. And it was like, these are people that I would hang out with. So it's weird when you share you have something so close to your heart, and then it splits off.
Yeah, it becomes intimate over all the years of watching them, seeing them so many times. I'm sure talking to them, meeting them.
It's so weird because we're living in this world where people want to be so sensitive to mental health issues, but then they vilify people who are publicly going through it. Like the Kanye stuff right now is crazy. Because he's great. I mean, he's got his ups and downs. That documentary on Netflix that came out about him is really eye-opening because he kind of set himself up for failure because he calls himself the greatest of all time. You can't really... And there's a scene in the documentary where one of his buddies is like, because he calls himself a genius, and his friend turns to him and goes, "You don't call yourself a genius. Mm-hmm. Someone else says that about you."
Yeah, it's in bad taste.
It's really self-aggrandizing in a not cool way.
Totally.
But I mean, he is great. But then to see this stuff now, where it's all playing out publicly, and people are like jumping on him, and it's like someone should take him aside and just give him a room and be like, hang out in here and eat some hot dogs, put your phone away.
Totally.
But, you're under the public scrutiny all the time.
Well, and he seems to go back and forth with that, right? Like when he was, in quotes, running for president. Did you see his speech?
I didn't see his speech. I saw him on a talk show the other day saying, when I run for president in 2024, and everybody laughed, and he looked at the crowd like, why are you laughing?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, sometimes... It's like that Joe Rogan podcast that he has, and Joe just lets him talk, and Kanye's mind is going 100 directions. But you see the brilliance in there, and there are some really cool ideas.
It's like he's having 20 thoughts over each other all at once.
It's amazing to hear him talk, but then it's hard. You have to like wade through it and be like, what's real and what is the ramblings of a madman?
How about that moment where he goes on about Star Wars and he goes, George Lucas, Luke Skywalker, and he's looking at him like, you feel me, bruh?
It's so weird and Joe's like, oh my God. And you're like, is this just pantomiming surprise, or are they really? And I never thought about that. I didn't know that was important. Is it? Who knows?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think it's a stretch. But it felt like Joe was trying to hold his hand through that whole podcast. Like he was really trying to walk him around the subjects to get him as close to sensible as possible.
Right. What I really like about Joe's skill when he's doing that is that he lets people talk. Like Kanye would go on for like 20 minutes and Joe wouldn't even jump in. But Kanye wasn't just he was rambling here and there, but some points were really illustrated by him continuing to talk through them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really great style of interviewing, not just jumping in or pushing your narrative on someone, you know?
Yeah, sometimes I hear people say they think Joe Rogan caves to other people's opinion too often, but I don't think that's at all the case. I think he lets people speak because he talks about his opinion so frequently that every once in a while, I'm sure he just wants to hear the opposing perspective.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think I know that, and again, for anyone listening, I've been here a few days, so me and this guy have talked about a ton of shit already. But it's funny when you get to a certain point where your influence is so impactful, you can't hide behind the normal tactics that you might have used. So when Joe will be like, I'm an idiot, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, when you get all that money and all those fans and, you know, all those listeners, you can't just say whatever you want coupled with I'm an idiot, because you're not an idiot.
Yeah, it's not a good disclaimer anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And people might not hear that or might not believe that or might not care. They just hear what you say. So it's weird, right? Because then you get to the point where he gets in trouble. And people are saying, oh, you're spreading misinformation. It's like, well, no, if it's a difference of opinion. But I don't know. I guess that's where I guess it's always changing, right? Like that's why it's interesting to see people walk things back or publicly just say, hey, I made a mistake.
For sure.
I'm going to change my vision on this, which I think is what humans do. So it's not a bad thing.
Well, if you're healthy-minded, I think.
But it is weird when, you want those controversial figures on because they will show you a side of maybe where they're coming from, right? So it sucks when things get pulled down.
Sure. Well, and I think there's something about giving them a proper time slot and listening to what they have to say instead of just writing it off because it's opposing opinion immediately.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened. He had that Robert Malone on just as he was silenced completely from Twitter.
Who is that again?
He's the guy who worked on the RNA technology.
Oh yeah, he had those couple doctors on, and I was trying to listen. So the problem with podcasts sometimes I find, and this is why I like a mindless one like Bill Burr's podcast, because he just rambles and it's funny
for sure.
But if you miss something, it doesn't matter. But the ones with the doctors are so dense that if you're trying to do like your daily duties or pay attention to something, you'll miss something that's integral to the point of the whole story.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to just go, and I find myself going back all the time, and then I'm like, no, I have to sit and really take this in. It's not just this passive thing.
Well, I do the same thing with podcasts of that sort as I do with really complicated books. If it's a really heavy subject, I find myself needing to take a break and digest.
Yeah.
Some podcasts I have to stop every 15 minutes and think about all the information I just received.
Like, it's funny. It's funny when you grow up reading and then you get a really serious book or something that is supposed to change your view of how you approach life, like that Jordan Peterson's book, and I remember taking it out to like the Cascades and being like, oh, I'm gonna have a nice read today, and it's this like impactful chapter about like get your life together, and you're like, oh shit, this was a nice sunny day and I have a couple beers and now I'm being like told by a dad to be like, get your shit together. Straight up. So it's like you gotta kind of choose your mood. And that goes back to the thing we talked about earlier with like music creating a mood. It's like, do you allow your mood to dictate the media that you consume, or do you just consume that media and allow your mood to change? Because you might be putting yourself in a negative place.
Sure. Well, sometimes you're not always as receptive as you could be.
Yeah, no, totally. And
sometimes I use music as a tool to influence my mood, and then other times I do have to steer the mood where I presently feel I'm at emotionally.
Well, I mean, like imagine going to the gym. I mean, we've all been to the gym and left your shit at home, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you have to like lift to Britney Spears. Side note, I had a real thing for the song Circus by Britney Spears last year.
Is that a new one?
I was singing it in bed one day.
Right.
It's not a new one, and I thought it would be hot, and I went to my buddy's gym to do squats, and I put it on really loud, expecting us to pop, and everyone was like, that's whack.
Okay.
So this is what I'm saying is, you can't always play Britney Spears to get your pump on.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but that's the example, right? Like you can't, music is, you definitely need a certain sound if you want to achieve a certain vibe, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's where DJing actually can be a skill. You know what I mean? When someone really reads the room correctly
curating
and
steers a vibe. Like I was telling you,
track list in the right direction.
I was telling you I was a wedding DJ for a while.
Yeah.
So in Thunder Bay, where we're both from, we have a large indigenous population. I was doing dinner music, and then we were going to dance. So it was a big native wedding.
Okay.
Everyone was really cool and nice. And I, for the background music, was playing Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
You know, lounge tunes. So
Strangers in the night.
this big native dude comes up. He's like, turn this fucking shit off. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm sorry. What would you like to hear? It's like AC/DC, obviously.
Right,
and I'm
right.
like, right on. I didn't want to start that crazy bumping vibe of one of the greatest rock band. What I will say on the record, the greatest rock band of all time.
Okay.
AC/DC. But I thought that was funny, right? So yeah, you do have to read the room. I remember I love David Bowie. Let's Dance is a great song.
Straight up.
I had the dance floor was packed once, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw on that. I put it on. The whole floor clears out. So you don't really know what you're getting into, and you can't just ham fist your taste down people's throats. Then again, who doesn't like David Bowie? Those people are weird. So
straight up.
Them. But yeah, so yeah. But yes, read the room by all means.
Yeah.
So our friend, you remember Andy?
Yeah. From Tap Out?
Madaw, yeah, from Tap Out, from Faceless Hulk.
Some of the bands you've been in?
I got that wedding job off of him. So, you know, it's a wedding. You're supposed to show up and look like presentable and play properly. Andy just didn't care about hygiene. He would show up with like ripped pits and like stains on his pants, and he would just play I'm Just a Gigolo by David Lee Roth. Just a Gigolo. And he was like, yeah, it's not really working out for me. Do you want this job? And I was like, he just didn't care, which I think is amazing.
Just didn't do the bare minimum.
Just didn't give a damn. And I was in my position where I needed the money. It was like $125 a night. So that's like 5 hours, $25 an hour.
Right.
Pretty girls are buying you drinks and asking for songs.
Yep.
Dudes are drunk and going through the CDs and being like, why don't you play off a laptop? And you're like, well, because you could get in a lot of trouble. But that's neither here nor there. It was just kind of hilarious. So if anyone ever wants to try that, go be a wedding DJ. Especially now the weddings are back on.
Yeah, they're coming back to life post-COVID.
We're getting married again.
That's right. I heard that Canada had some of the highest birth rates during COVID-19.
Nothing to do but fuck.
Yeah, straight up. But then we also have really high divorce rates.
The darkest thing, because so back in Thunder Bay,
right,
we at least have nature, so you could go outside and walk around.
Yeah.
It was really, really harrowing to hear people talk about like domestic violence just blowing through the roof.
Really?
And that's
I hadn't heard
really
that
scary to think about, like two people who maybe are already having problems in their relationship, and then they're all at home with their kids and they start beating on each other or just verbally abusing each other, and you're like, that's dark, you know? Or you saw, you know, people in apartments in Toronto having to stay inside, and I was like, I can't do that. Like or talking to friends who have been like, oh yeah, I was traveling from India and then I came back and I had to stay in a hotel room for 2 weeks. I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, you have to, but I just go absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Like just being locked inside.
No, it sounds terrible for such a social animal.
You like get like a guitar and you just make that album. Mm-hmm. If you're musically inclined. Or
if you have like self-satisfying hobbies or pursuits, careers.
But it's so crazy too, because like, I don't know about you, but it was a time, and I know we talked about this again, but it was a time where you're like, okay, this is my chance to like learn a new language. Read that book. I played a bunch of drums. I took the course that Animals as Leaders guy put out, the Matt Gartzka, and I got better because I was already good, and then I like blew through this like glass ceiling that I had. So that felt amazing.
You bought the course?
Yeah. And
what'd that cost?
I think it was only like $30.
Okay.
It came with online transcriptions, and you printed it out. It's funny, right? You can get all this material, educational stuff, and you got to put in the work.
Yeah.
Not like you just download it to your computer. You put in the work.
You're like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
I know jujitsu.
But it takes a long time. And when you like suck at something you're good at, and you're like, oh no, I do suck, right? But it's really cool. So that was cool to get better. But then the lack of movement takes over. Inertia. You're just like stuck on the... You mean getting a sedentary lifestyle going during COVID? I like the gym. I like bands. I like my work. I love my work. I love helping people. I love doing, like, you have your things that you do. And getting up, it was just like sleep in, put on a pot of consomme soup. I got so heavy into dill pickle chips in consomme soup. And I would just fucking eat that all afternoon and watch Gordon Ramsay. And it was just like, that was it. And every day was gray. And you turn on the news because you want it, like, what's happening? And it's doom and gloom. And
yeah, nothing but.
But you reach a place where you turn it on and you leave it on, and it's just that on repeat. It's just the most negative shit ever repeating, and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't turn on the TV today because it's nothing new is happening, and this is just beating you down with negativity.
Absolutely.
And it was excruciating. And I'm glad my experience isn't, original compared to anyone else's or anything like that, but it's funny, right? You really saw mental collapse and physical collapse.
Yeah, for most people, my experience during all of it was I really got ahead of a lot of issues I was having. And then I went to school for music production and audio engineering.
That's fantastic.
My COVID lockdowns were actually a really good time. I had things that forced me to get the minimum of socializing and shit like that.
Pound it out.
And then did hone some new skills, started playing more guitar, started practicing this, that, and the other thing.
And then it's like when we talked about earlier, almost like a self-sabotage thing where you start making progress and then you like dick it up because you're almost not used to making that much progress because you had other shit you had to do during the day. So now you're making all this progress on this thing you love and you're like, oh, maybe that's too much.
Yeah.
Right? So, but that's a self problem. So get your head out of your ass. But it was, what a time.
How did it feel to no longer have the social outlet of playing with other people?
Yeah.
Even though you could practice.
I still maintained bands and we still played. And there were people I was playing with. One individual we both know, he had a job working with the public and he lives with his elderly parents and he was like, oh, I don't think I can, which is totally fine. Another, like a cover band I was in, the wife of the gentleman who hosted the jams was like, hey, I don't really want anyone over at the house, which is fine too.
Okay.
But we maintained a small group and we definitely kept going, which was great. If I didn't have that, I would probably just go nuts.
Yeah,
I already went nuts. Like I definitely drank too much, did too much drugs, ate too much, all kinds of dumb shit, But having that outlet, because it's weird when you're like, I started playing music when I was like 16 and I'm 36 now. So when all of a sudden you don't have shows to practice for, you don't have an album to do, or you do, but you're like spinning your wheels because you're not even sure if you're going to play a show. Are shows ever going to happen again? Right? Yeah. So bizarre. And to not have the social element of going to the bar for a pint. Like I love to go get a beer with my dad. We had to sit in the garage. My mom has cancer and we couldn't be in the house. So she would stand outside. She's doing well, by the way, but she would stand outside the garage. My dad would be in the car in the garage, and I'd be sitting in a seat in the garage. We're all distanced, right? Like truly socially distanced, but it's weird. I hugged my mom for the first time in like a year and a half, and that's just weird, Like,
yeah, of course.
I'm close with her. And
that's terrible.
It's just the weirdest feeling when you're like, and then you wonder, you're like, is this all legit or is this, and then the barrage of questions and the conspiracies that don't sound far off. And when all of the dust settles and you realize half that shit is true, and then you're like, wow, 2 years, man. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Of not hugging your family member.
Not hugging your family members. The weird little kids not getting to see facial.
Well, there's a lot of things I felt were getting written off. That's one for sure. Like the children, it's very clear that it's affecting their speech negatively and their vocabulary development. To have them wearing a mask during their
with children
school day.
Already, like when you're around them, like I taught drum lessons a ton. Kids' ability to socialize with an adult was already not good,
right?
Because they're all stuck on their phones, so they're awkward. But you gently get it out of them, and you create a nice bond, and you're able to speak, and it's comfortable. This is just like set everything back years.
Yeah.
So I was doing online drum teaching. That Cheyenne lady I mentioned earlier, she's also on. She's the program director for the Greenstone District School Board in Nipigon. So I'm lying in bed at the beginning of COVID with nothing to do, and I'm like, life sucks. And she calls me. She's like, hey, do you want to do online drum lessons? And it paid like really well because they had so much money in their budget that had to be spent by the end of the year. Otherwise, you don't get that same amount. So she's like, it's this much. It's like hundreds of dollars per lesson. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Like I have nothing going on.
For sure.
So you broadcast onto, and I had my iPad, and you're just broadcast onto a screen. And my niece lives part-time in Nipigon because her mom lives there. So she told my brother the other day, she's like, was Uncle Josh on the teaching drums on a screen? And that's cool. And he's like, what the hell's going on? But it was cool to buy. So we did like bucket drumming. So just getting drumsticks. They already had drumsticks there, and they were on like Canadian Tire plastic buckets.
Okay.
And just going over polyrhythms and sticking techniques and accents and things like that. And
Awesome.
it was cool. It was supplemental income. It was something to do. And I could like roll out of bed, put on coffee, and just fire up the computer. So that was fun. And so I was really grateful for that opportunity. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, right? And yeah, so I was teaching this class, and at the front, no one had told me this. So there was a lack of communication here and there. I had a little girl like hitting her head off the table, and I'm like, oh my God, is this kid okay? Am I doing that bad of a job? Like, I'm that bad of a teacher. This kid hates this class so bad. And then I emailed the teacher later. I'm like, is everything okay? She's like, oh, that's one of our special needs kids. But you can't see their face because there's a mask on, and I'm far away. So I'm used to teaching one-on-one in a classroom setting, right?
Yeah.
So teaching, I mean, I've never been taught how to teach, but I've taught lessons for like 100 years, like just forever now. So it's so weird when then you're like put in the professional setting, but then you can't see faces.
Right.
Or they had, she had a program for Geraldton, Ontario, where there was a native kid who came in, and he was really, they're really shy, really painfully shy.
Okay.
And I gave them drums to hook up there. So that's a 3-hour drive from Thunder Bay. But someone came into town. I gave them drums. They hooked them up. But they had the camera over here, and the kid was way in the corner, and he's got his long hair, and he's playing. And so much of teaching, especially with that kind of instrument, is like encouragement and being present in the room and saying, hey, that was really good. Let's try it again.
For sure.
Trying to connect. So I'm way over on, some guy is on the screen over here. That's me. And then this kid's in the corner, and he says, I'm not any good at this. And it's like, if I was there, I could be like, hey, you are. And it's totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to translate positivity, or it is for me anyway. I'm not a professional at that. And I mean, like, what is a professional? How many years? Maybe there's a nuance to that profession that I don't know, probably. But it's just disheartening when you know that this child could really enjoy this. And,
right.
But because you're not there in person, or I can't even see your fucking face because there's a mask on.
Yeah, there's no way it helps, because I find someone learning something, the teacher and the student almost always develop some form of trust where they
100%,
because it's vulnerable to do something new for the first time, or even to do something that you've been practicing for a long time.
True. Yeah.
Right? Like playing guitar in front of your teacher, you want it to become something that you trust them, you're comfortable, you're going to not freeze up with anxiety when you go to practice in front of them.
So, and then one situation was pretty wild. There's a kid at Superior High School. No one told me this little guy was mentally handicapped.
Right.
So he comes in the room. He jumps in on a lesson that I'm doing with another school. And he's sitting there. I can't see his face. And he's just randomly hitting things. I'm like, well, he's not getting it. But how do I address him without slowing that whole? And then afterwards, and I told all the teachers and the principal and Cheyenne, I was like, I was a little pissed off. I called him like, you got to tell me if someone has a mental issue.
Yeah, if they got a condition of some kind.
Are you kidding me? You're going to just walk me? I can't see the kid. I don't know their name. And that's a different lesson plan. Like, you don't just be like, oh, and here's a person who has some catastrophic brain injury where they can barely. But it was really encouraging. Afterwards, they said that kid was walking down the hallway playing with his drumsticks.
Really?
Talking about drums. It was really like heart warming. But it was, it's like, and I'm not blaming the teachers because I treat teachers as a massage therapist, and they come in and, you ask people with kids, you ask people, how's it going? And they're like, this is the worst year of my life. Like, my kids are at home. I have to teach them. I don't get a break from them. My wife's going crazy, or my spouse is, going nuts. And I have to somehow get kids interested in sitting that a computer? Oh, so. Anyway, enough COVID shit. How are you doing?
Oh, fuck. Well, no, it's just
When's that
bound to
album
be
coming
brought up.
No, it is. And
Everybody's been living with it for so long now that I do think it's hard to avoid conversationally.
I thought one thing was really interesting. I think some comedians were talking about it once where it was like, what do you think about referencing it during a stand-up special?
Right.
Or when television shows try to be like modern and the characters have masks on.
Yeah.
And I believe in the point that someone made, and they said, I don't think we should because that dates the material completely to this era. That some people will just want to forget. And we watch TV and we watch comedy specials to get away from our life.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to see this bullshit.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things play it in a different way. Like you had the new Curb where you didn't see any of it. And then you had my girlfriend watches Grey's Anatomy where they had COVID and they successfully cured it. It's all done now in the series, yeah.
And Grey's Anatomy, I would say that seems like a real left kind of, like a real.
Oh, there's a lot of social justice agendas
a lot of
pushed in
leftist
there.
Shit in there. So
I imagine in their world, everyone got the vaccine, so it.
And they're
100%.
nurses and doctors, so that stays true to that, which is true, and you gotta respect those people. And that was the worst thing. I think out of all of it, you can trust those people when you know doctors and nurses and they're like, work is exhausting and I fucking hate my life.
Right.
And you're like, that blows. So whatever they say, you should do. Because honestly, they're the person who's, I don't know the last time you had surgery or a really bad accident, but when you go in there and something's broken or you need something taken out of your body that's, poisoning you or something, you're scared because it's scary. So those people who have that grace and ability to treat you, you should make sure you're listening to them because that is fair, right? Those are the people we trust, right? I think. Like, I wouldn't go up to a doctor and be like, oh, fuck you. I'm not going to if he says, dude, this really helps. Then again, up at the ski lodge,
I think they can be misled as well.
Sure.
Or personal bias I've seen influence so many doctors where presently my doctor is the most unique doctor I've had, in which I will say I've looked at the literature available on something going on with me.
The literature.
And he'll take me seriously. Mm-hmm. He'll actually listen to my opinion and work with me. I'm the only doctor I've ever had like this.
Because they can be dismissive and they can
absolutely
have a God complex. Up at that lodge that I was mentioning earlier that I worked at, we just had one of the highest members of the CDC. Where
do you have a lighter?
Do I have a lighter?
Yeah.
I don't even smoke.
Okay, go.
I'll go get it.
No, tell your story first.
Oh, it's just we had one of the highest members of the CDC up there the other day.
The Canadian one.
I don't know. Is that Canadian? I don't know shit
we
about
have
dick.
one. Yeah, we have one. We're right over there. We got
dick.
a CDC clinic right over there.
In a world gone mad.
I used to have to go there and get my ass blasted with liquid nitrogen.
Ass blasted?
Yeah, with liquid nitrogen at the CDC.
What the fuck is ass blasted?
Well, they just blast if you have had, what was it again? The one that Gardasil protects from.
Gardasil!
You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea what we're talking about. What's Gardasil?
It's a vaccine against a specific condition.
Are we talking about butt stuff?
You can get it that way. Now they offer the vaccine for free to homosexuals strictly.
Okay.
But I had contracted some kind of STI, and then it resulted in a growth on my ass, and then I was going to this one doctor.
Not a hemorrhoid, though.
No, I thought it was. I described it to a doctor at a walk-in, and then he kept prescribing me topical steroids to put on it. Ultimately, those shut down your immune system.
Wow.
Made it worse and worse and worse.
When do you think we'll get to the point where we all just accept as adults that we have hemorrhoids?
Well, that's what I was just like. It's a fact of life. What are you going to do? Doctor's like, I don't need to look at it. Here's the stuff for your hemorrhoids. Turns out it's...
maybe he had an ass bias.
Maybe.
Ass bias.
But it got so bad that then I had to go for regular ass blastings of liquid nitrogen once a week.
That's amazing.
From the CDC.
Those cock, dick, and cock experts.
It was good shit.
Yeah, so anyway, this gentleman... So all these people at this lodge are fucking millionaires, right?
Okay.
So this guy's a higher up dude, and I didn't hear him, but my staff told me, they're like, man, he's like, he's straight upset because up there we just got the masks off. So he's like, I wore one, it does nothing. Like he's one of the people that makes the.
That's what a doctor said.
Yeah, he said it does not. If like he said when he skis, he's like, I don't wear a helmet because putting a helmet on just decreases the danger by 5%.
Okay.
He said, now, do I believe that? Not personally, because I don't want a concussion and I don't want my fucking brain hitting my. And when I'm skiing through the trees, I'm not that good of a skier, and I'm terrified that I'm gonna blast my head off. So I'm like, no. But that's his. But he's one of these guys that uses numbers to
assess his
rationalize
risk.
everything. So he's like, I drink alcohol. Is it going to increase my chance of cancer? Of course, but I like it. I drink my own urine because it's sterile and I like the taste.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Straight
I'll
up.
get you a lighter.
But that it was HPV. That was what I had on my ass.
Oh, I'll say this to the public, to all 50 people listening. We've been talking nonstop this weekend, and it's been fun because we've been having really informative discussions. And I don't think that's common. Like on my way to come here, I got in a van with people where we're strangers, and we kind of started talking about things, and we had a really deep conversation. And the driver turned to me and was like, "Hey, this is like really deep shit." And I'm like, I kind of noticed that. I don't smoke weed, by the way, so I'm going to have one
Oh,
puff.
Here we go. We're switching it up.
And then I'm going to clam up and not even be able to talk.
That's okay. If that happens, then we'll free you from the restrictions of being on record.
I used to love weed, but I didn't even know that excuse me, there were two strains, and then you learn about the sativa world. And the indica world. But anyway, so yeah, okay. So what I was saying earlier to cap that off is it's nice to have deep conversations, and people will say that small talk is bullshit. And some people say small talk is everything, but I think it's nice when you can kind of read what people are into and then delve deep into something and not be too controversial as to push them away, but to engage them and learn some different shit, right?
I think there's a skill in finding the complex and the simple and the simple and the complex.
And it doesn't have to be this like scary thing where you shy away from things, right? So my plug back in Thunder Bay one day gave me this fucking weed, and I didn't need it. But we were up all night doing our bullshit, and then he's like, "Take this weed back." I was gonna give it to my girl, but instead I stayed up and I smoked some. And it was the night where Biden and Trump were debating.
Okay.
And I stayed up for 2 hours on Twitter from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Watching the fucking herd fight about it?
Just reading people flipping out on each other. And it was like paranoia weed. And it was just, so I needed that insane shit show to distract me.
Right.
Which was hilarious, but yeah, so
You find it doesn't get you more in your head? Like sometimes I smoke weed and then suddenly you're thinking about, is World War III about to pop off any second now?
I think so. What do you think? What's the line? They say to have an opinion, to understand things, to be educated. It's like it opens you up to thinking about all the shit we can't control, and then our lives are just hell. Unless you can just put it in a box, right?
Yeah,
so
I don't like that.
I don't like doing that. But that's what happens.
Well, I think you're talking about when intelligence becomes prevalent enough, you will start to see more dangerous, more pernicious things in the world. But then you cope with that with wisdom. Yeah, is my 2 cents. Wisdom is very different from intelligence, and it's usually how you deal with intelligence.
And I think it's also wisdom comes from these type of conversations. We're kind of like, so I was in Thunder Bay for a long time there, and then I was at my clinic, and I needed a change, and I like skiing, and I saw this opportunity, and I wanted to do it. Now, it turned out that it's really hard when you're your own boss for 9 years, and then you have a boss all of a sudden.
A real job.
And it's the hospitality industry. And like, I work at a clinic where I make my own hours. I got a great secretary. Mm-hmm. It's dope. But I do anything I want.
Right.
Whereas now I'm part of a team and I got to fall in line, and a bunch of the team or the staff are like,
there's a chain of command and a hierarchy.
Mid-20s. And I'm just like, do I fit? And it's like, not really. And you think you're malleable enough to fit into any scenario. And I don't want to say that certain people aren't. But I think when you just don't give a fuck, and you're just like, it's not that I don't give a fuck. I don't really like getting up at 6:30 in the morning. Then again, I started to, and now I can't stop getting up early.
I think there's right and wrong jobs for people.
Sure. And it's like, I know my talents flourish when I'm trying to help people heal. And I don't care about hospitality as much. But I see people that are into that, and that's awesome. Because when you go out for a meal or you go to a bar and you're treated really well and you're given amazing food and amazing drinks, you feel awesome. Right? So it's like that industry is cool. I'm just not part of that. So it's kind of interesting. Now I know you're a landscaper. But that's not that. No one wants to do that forever.
No, that's a bill payer, right?
Tear your fucking ligaments apart doing that.
Yeah, it's something to pay the bills in the meantime, and then I come home to my second job and
what's next?
Yeah, work on music on the computer.
It's so crazy how we were brought up thinking that music was a viable career, and then it just slides away.
People were, when I was young and in school, and I was so discouraged from doing anything with it, that it was so unrealistic as well. Because there's so many jobs pertaining to audio and music where a teacher will say, you're not going to play guitar for a living. It's like you could play guitar amongst a million other things that pay the bills in the industry of.
Yeah, I mean, so my band Norris that I had since I was 19. We did a bunch of albums. We got signed. We got dropped. We got toured the country a ton. And it's just funny. I was trying to find a career path. And friends were like, go be a session drummer. I'm not a session drummer. I like to make my own.
You probably could be.
I could be, but my style is like behind the beat. I can't play exactly what people want all the time.
Right.
It's got to be who I am, because that's music, is your own personal inflection. The dudes that can do everything are amazing, but I kind of like when a drummer has his sound, right? Like when you hear Stuart Copeland from the Police, or you hear Ginger Baker from Cream, or you hear Abe Cunningham from the Deftones, you're like, I know that. I can just hear the drums and know that feel. And it's like, it's got a bounce to it, right? So anyway, it was funny coming up in that, and I told myself, like, I want to be signed by the time I'm 25 and see what that's like. And we signed to a tiny little indie down southern Toronto there, or Guelph rather, and that was cool. We got distributed on Relapse Records, which is really cool.
Yeah, that'd be
exciting.
Always
look up to that, because Dillinger was on that, Mastodon was on that. That's awesome. But at the end, I mean, it doesn't do it. I mean, it's cool when you tour around and people are like, congrats, but when you come home and you have no money. So my dad was like, maybe you should think about getting a job, because you're going to be a bum. And if you're a bum, I don't want to hear that you're asking people for money. So I was like, I should probably get a fucking career. But I was so nearsighted on my goals with music that I was unbalanced, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed that with my brother as well. Like, he was so obsessed with weightlifting that it was all he did. He became incredible at it. But maybe, I think it's easy to see how you dedicate yourself to this for so long, you don't have any avenues.
Right.
Other than that. So then you get out and you learn about like healthcare, or you learn about other things, and you're like, oh, now I'm becoming an actual person, as opposed to just this machine that wants to do this one awesome thing. I remember joining, in 2014 or 13, I joined like almost every band in Thunder Bay. I was the drummer for every band. And because I was like, if I'm playing every time I play the pub, it's a blast. So if I just play it constantly, it'll be always a blast. And it wasn't. It was just a job, right?
Right.
Every Friday and Saturday, and your girlfriend's like, hey, can we go for dinner and spend the night in? And you're like, no, I got to go play with this goofy fucking funk rock band that I don't even give a fuck about, right?
I hear that could be more common than you'd think, that someone thinks they want to play their instrument as a career, and then they do start to feel like the life and fun has been sucked out of it 100%. By all the obligatory performances.
There's an individual back in town, and he's a popular guy, and you see the kind of person who, when they come into the room at a party, they're selling their CD.
Yeah.
How fucking brutal is that?
Yeah.
It just sucks the air out of the room, and that's the career thing to do, because you're putting yourself in the forefront so much that people can't tell, is there like a genuine person, or is this person just narcissistic beyond belief?
Well, that's where I think that could be counterintuitive, because I think people like artists that almost have a little distance between the fans and the artists.
So you're 10 years younger than me, but I don't know if you grew up in this at all. I don't think so, because internet popped off, and I was right there. I was right there for it back in my day.
The first time I fired up Google.
First time I realized my father had MILF porn on. I couldn't believe it. it was crazy because like back in the day when like Circus or like Hit Parader or any of those magazines, and you go and you see like Marilyn Manson, and it would be a shitty photo where it's just like a shadow, or Trent Reznor would be like in like a pose, and you're like, what's this person about? And the article didn't really have any real information. It was just quips from an industry insider says he's so depressed, but his music gives him life, right? And you're like, oh my God, what is this person? So you get spellbound by it, and you're like, oh my God, I want to learn more.
There's
like
an
now,
air of mystique,
which is so essential because you want that dark, especially with like heavier music or industrial type stuff, any of that, like that adds to the allure. I don't want to know what you made for breakfast. I don't give a fuck that you go to the gym at 2 p.m.
Well, even if you're going to be personable as an artist, you're going to do something other than the music and you're going to be public about it. I think it has to be extremely authentic and genuine, or it's going to hurt your cause.
I think, so my tactic in my bands, I was an auditor general, we did Tappa, we did like Norris and all those bands. I would like to take the route, because you grow up on those Pantera home videos. I like to be self-depreciating and have a lot of humor, because it lets people know that you can take the piss out of yourself. You're not this, I'm such a serious artist. But when bands can do the promotion or the videos where it's dark and brooding, but it comes across appropriately, that's really cool. I'm kind of not envious of it, but I think that's great, because I need to make sure people know that I'm joking, because you never want to be the person who takes himself so fucking seriously that the facade just crumbles whenever anyone
for sure
comes after you. But it is cool when a band is that like dark and ugly, and like, so you were in a new machine, and I play with Ryan now, and I think we're going to put out a new album this year. As
a different band or as a new machine?
That's I told him to keep the name, and we've been writing. And I got to tell you,
I've been wanting that to happen.
Dude, you have to hear the shit. Like, it's slamming. And it's not like this because he wanted to do the black metal stuff, but we would just let each other start playing. And when I look up, and he's a beautiful dude, and when I look up at his stupid bearded fucking face, and he's just smiling and riffing, and I'm smiling. And it's cool to write music that's really good, but is also fun to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not even challenging yourself. You're just having a blast. With a buddy. So we're going to do that. But you guys, so you were in that band, and again, and I know we've talked about this. I love to talk to Ryan about this, but like I was in massage school, and I would go up to Safeway up the block. That's where Ryan was.
Yeah, you see him working his day job.
I see him work, and I'm like, oh, that bearded guy. And I was like, maybe he's mean or nasty. And I know he knows who I am, and I know who he is, but I never really talked to him. But I'm like, well, if he can keep a job like this, and he was like a manager or something, so I'm like, then he's pretty cool. And we'd see each other around and smile and nod. And he said him and Scally, your buddy there, would go and like listen to our albums and enjoy them. Meeting Ryan now, it's like he's one of the nicest people I know. He's one of my best friends. I love him to death. So it's so funny how people come into your life and you think you know what's like you. Like
I was thinking
you're
the
my
exact
friend's
same
little
thing
brother
for you.
And I looked at you like a reckless individual, and that was what was cool about a new machine. But this was what was cool, because it was the weird photos of you guys like strung up in a garage with fake blood.
Yeah, I took my pants off and tucked my dick in between my legs for a photo.
That's fucking awesome, because no one would do that.
Yeah, mangina.
No one would want to do that. So it's really amazing to see that, and I always admired you guys for that, because I just think it was a little tongue-in-cheek, but it was also kind of serious, and I don't know you, so I'm like, maybe they're really psychos, which lends to something that's so cool. Like, I want to think my favorite bands are psychos. Like, I want to think they're insane, because it just makes it so alluring to want to follow in their footsteps, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because I think about black metal in context of the cancel culture discussion and the things that people are gone after for. Yeah. And then it doesn't even get addressed that the guy from The Shining, threw razor blades into a crowd. Is
that a band?
Yeah, Shining. I think there's two Shinings.
Shiner?
I think Shining.
Shiner.
But yeah, in black metal, those guys have all the notorious rumors and stories of the sickest, most psychopathic
the
shit.
Allure. The thing that bums me out about black metal is it sucks. So when you listen...
The production. You don't like Eddie.
No, I do. I like Dimmu Borgir. I think they're dope.
Okay. I didn't like them before.
I had to play in a Mayhem cover band. I know we talked about this last night, and it was cool to learn it. Oh yeah, I told you this, and this might sound like an arrogant thing, but I don't really give a fuck because I think I'm better than those guys anyway. But the songwriting just goes on forever,
Right.
and it can be edited down. I love when there's a song that's like a pop song, like when you can write a fucking great pop song. Like my band Auditor, we had a couple songs where we tried to make the best pop song.
Right.
When you do simple things, key change, verse, chorus, structure, but done in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
And there was a period in time in town back home where these bands were going on these long exploratory musical musings on stage, which is fine, but it's like crescendos, it builds up, it drops down. And it's like, I would look at these guys and I know someone can sing in the band and the band doesn't even have a singer.
Right.
And I'm like, I want a fucking pop song. Because if you guys wrote a pop song, it'd probably be great. I guess I just love pop. I'm outing myself as loving pop music and I don't give a fuck.
Oh, I do. I have some things that
doesn't?
stick with me, like Teenage Dream by Katy Perry. I get fired up every time.
Dude, let's listen to that after this is done. I
Yeah, I'm
actually
down.
love that song.
Yeah.
TikTok by Kesha.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So, okay, when I was a wedding DJ,
Okay.
there are certain songs, when you put them on insanely loud, they are just the greatest thing of all time. Call Me Maybe.
Oh, yeah. I like that
Okay,
one.
when you play that so loud that you almost vomit, it's a fucking banger. That Cruise song by Alabama, Georgia Line, or whatever the fuck they're called. I hate country.
I don't know that one.
It's like dance country and it's like stomp stuff,
Okay.
but it
Sounds like
it's-
it might make me want to kill myself.
Dude, I hate when I hear it normal volume. I'm like, I hate this. When you play it super loud and a bunch of hot bitches are like getting down to it, and it's like a summer night, and you're like, this is great. So you
Okay.
gotta hand it because the production team knows exactly what they're doing.
Right.
They're not amateurs.
Right.
They know
that's
exactly
yeah.
how to make it pop. There's little things in the background that you can't hear that unless you have it crazy loud, you hear these little like crackling effects.
Oh, pop music's incredible for that. You're listening to the production and the mix, and you'll have a song that even if you don't like what the song is as a structured piece of music,
You'll fall
the
in love with it.
mix will
Yeah.
just suck you in. It's immersive in a almost painful way.
Def Leppard, okay?
Okay.
Hysteria, that
Okay.
1985 album, right when Rick, the drummer, cut his fucking arm off. It's the craziest thing in the world because he can't play normal drums, so he's got an electric kit, or it's like a hybrid kit, but they manipulate this. Listen to it back. Listen to the song Hysteria. Listen to Pour Some Sugar on Me. There's this like crackling, chimey. It sounds like glass breaking every time he hits the snare drum. And every song is like a BPM that's like 9. It's like slow, sexy rock.
Right.
It's like it cost them like $6 million to make, I think. I heard that.
Okay.
It took 2 years to make. Back then, 1985, $6 million. Pour Some Sugar on Me was written in the last 10 minutes of the session. They didn't even have their hit yet, and the guy sat down and wrote it on the spot. Sorry, I'm just kind of gushing over Def Leppard. But
That's cool.
I'm saying the pop music production, even with raw, like hair metal, it just sounds so insane. And it's like sparkling and shimmering the whole time. It feels like a strip club
Totally.
in your ears, which is amazing. So what I guess I'm saying is that it's awesome when someone can have a song that's maybe a good song, maybe not so good, but another person outside of that group can manipulate the sound so much that it's appealing to a mass audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you sell 1 million albums.
Totally.
But, you can't take away the fact that a good song's a good song. And if you hear it, I like, when someone can write a song on acoustic guitar and it's good, then you can add every other instrument.
Yeah. When something shines through with the minimalist.
Then you really know. Because I started on guitar, I was like 13. It's awesome. My dad is the shit. I fucking love him so much. I was bugging him for like a month. I was like, I want a guitar. I wasn't good at sports. My brother and my dad are awesome at sports. They're jocks, but I could never find my way. And I'm like, I want to be good at something. Then I went to a friend's house in grade 6, and she had an electric guitar, and a couple of us were hanging out in a room, and she played like Rage Against the Machine on electric guitar, playing along to the album. And I was like, this is fucking awesome, and I think I can do this. So I bugged my dad, I need this. And he was like, he came up to my room one night, wasn't a holiday, wasn't my birthday. He's like, all right, let's go get a guitar tomorrow. And he didn't make me play an acoustic. He let me get an electric, which I was like, because I just want to play like Nine Inch Nails and like Silverchair songs. It's just like the heaviest, biggest sounding guitar. So I went and got it the next day, and I love him so much for that. So I did that. But I wish I started on acoustic, because when you learn the nuance of that, you are really good. When you go to electric, it's so easy, right?
Well, there's little things. I think you hide behind the distortion and 100%. Shit like that. You'll hear
delay,
on the clean,
chorus, distortion, and you're like, I sound great. When you take it away, you're just holding a note. You're like,
even the size of the guitar, I think, makes a big difference.
Like
it's a little harder to play the acoustic.
I like the littler ones. I like the 3/4 length, the little ones.
Like that. That's a Fender Malibu.
Yeah, I like that. Like when you go to a friend's camp and their dad has like a big acoustic guitar, and you're like still like 16, and you're like, that sucks.
That's kind of what my other one, the Court, is like. It's a really big guitar. Going between them is totally
when
different
you're a
worlds.
Grown man, it's okay. But when you're like a little kid and you already suck and you can't really hold down the strings,
they're harder to play.
Like Wonderwall in front of your friend's family, and you can't. So anyway, so he got me that at that time, and so I had this crazy thing. Let me know if this ever happened to you. I thought when you were a kid you could only choose one thing. So I loved guitar, but then I was like, I think I might want drums. And I had this like crazy like split personality in my mind where it's like, you can only do one or the other. You can only do like one or the other.
You thought it was an ultimatum?
I thought it was an ultimatum. I didn't understand that as a musician, it's good to know more than one, and you can. So I was having this like crazy thing in my brain where I'm like, what am I gonna do? And then I bugged my dad. So this is funny because it'd be cute if I was like 6 or 8, but I was like 12 or 13. And my dad let me set up like a Tupperware container, a water cooler, and I had an old dog kennel. I put a big piece of metal in, and then I slid some saw blades together for hi-hats. Now, my dad made me these metal sticks, these hollow metal sticks that must have weighed like 7 pounds each. And I would play along to Blink-182. Instead of playing with my foot, I'd play with my right hand, would be my bass drum, and my left would be my snare.
Right.
And then I do this. And I was beating the shit out of the hi-hat, the saw blades.
Right.
So much that
makeshift.
My dad was like, you keep taking, because we had a workshop in the basement, and he was like, you keep taking my fucking saw blades. And I was like, I want a drum kit. And he was like, and that's expensive, and it's so noisy, and I sucked so bad at the beginning. So I got them for Christmas. I was 15, and I remember going out that Christmas Eve and like going to the tree, and there were these huge boxes covered in blankets, and I was like, this is it. And I saw them on Christmas Day, and I thought I would be able to get off the ground quickly with it, but it's just, it takes a while. But my right hand was super crazy fast because I was playing with 7 pounds. Now, for anyone out there, a stick should be like 0.03 of a pound. So these were like 7 pounds, so my hand was really fucking fast.
Right.
And then you just like put everything else together, right?
Yeah.
But I look back at how annoying drums are when someone sucks. Like teaching people for like 20 years, I know how bad it is.
Yeah.
And it's like to know what my parents had to put up with for like 3. So here's another thing, and I like to talk about this when people talk about a kid getting good at something that they like to do. I had so many parents come into my room and be like, so like, how does he get really good? And I was like, lady, all I know, like I have ADD and ADHD and all that shit. And I would get to the point where I would just stay in my room after school and play drums. It's all I did. I had a girlfriend. I eventually got a band. I just played drums.
Yeah.
That's all I did. So you're like in there from like 6 to 9 because my parents would want to go to bed after that. And I'm just like, my mom would knock at the door and be like, dinner's ready. And I'm playing along to Tool or something. And I'm like trying my best. And my hands are bleeding and my legs are like cramping up. But you break through these barriers and you become really good. And then people start saying, hey, you're getting actually pretty good at that. And you're like, I'm on the right track, right?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because I think the only way to do it is to do it,
Oh, for sure. And
people
you'll
try to
work out
make-
the technical kinks along the way as well, right? And you'll meet people who want to teach you things if you're really expressing passion
Totally.
about it in your day-to-day
Totally
life.
that, but it's just like there's no like okay, we both like going to the gym. You know how it is to build muscle. The only way to do it is to do it.
Mhm.
There's no pill. There's roids, but you still people think steroids. You just fucking
it-
do them and you're fine. No, you have
Yeah.
to actually be in the gym murdering yourself, but you heal fast, which is kind of the appeal of them. I haven't done them, but maybe it's time to get on some trend. Who knows?
We'll do it. I'll load you up today.
I want to fit my clothes. Really? Do we? You're hearing it here.
Gonna do
We're doing a
steroids
cycle.
live.
I'm 36. My fucking hormones are gonna be fucked.
He's gonna have his first trembolone sandwich right here, right now.
What is a trimbolone sandwich?
Yeah, it's just trend.
Oh, it's just trend
It's just
in
trend.
both butt cheeks.
Yeah. You just jab yourself a little trembolone.
So what I'm saying is, it's. I
You
don't
can
know.
never get around putting the work in.
You can't.
Yeah,
And it's
for
so.
sure.
It's like seeing. Okay, so back to the COVID thing, but to tie it all in, when the kids this last winter, or maybe it was I don't even know anymore.
Right.
They took the hockey nets off of rinks.
Okay.
We love hockey in Canada. NHL fucking rules. I grew up playing hockey. I don't know about you. I think every Canadian kid does. Did you know?
I've played very little.
Yeah. I didn't play a ton, but my brother had a street hockey league. He would put on Guns N' Roses, super loud, and we'd run around and hit each other. That was dope. And so we're so proud of our young guys that come up and do that. And they took rinks away. Now, this is when a kid is 12 or 13 and they're finding their joy and their talent at a sport that they love and that their whole country supports. And then you take away a net for the rink, and cops were driving by to make sure, and like dads were bringing hockey nets there to be like, fuck you, my son's playing. Because it's a rite of passage in our country. Just like other countries have their own things. We have hockey. We have getting up at 5 a.m, get dropped off at the rink, and you skate and you have fun and you score a goal and you're flying down the ice. It feels like you're in a jet. It's fucking awesome. I'm not any good at it, but I have played it and it is fun. So it's really messed up when a government can take this little period of time that's so special to a kid, like 12 to 16, any in that. You really find what do you love, and you don't have any bills, you don't have a job, you might have a girlfriend, but she's not a pain in your ass yet, and you just fucking do this thing, right? So it's like put in the work. And people ask all the time, what's the magic pill? How do I get rich?
Yeah.
How do I perfect an instrument? How do I get, a better body? It's like, you got to work your butt off and every day. And so like Ryan and I were writing this album and we're like 8 songs deep. And I had this experiment last summer where I'm like, or no, holy shit, time is fucked, eh? Summer of 2020 rather. And, I said, let's just get together for 1 hour a day, every day though.
Oh, that's enough.
No more.
That's lots.
And we got in there and we made so much progress. No excuses, no backing down. Don't get too drunk during the day. Don't take a nap. 1 hour, no more, no less. That's not too much. Because I'd be like, Norris would jam twice a day in our early years. When I was 19, we jammed above the Apollo, RIP. Back in Thunder Bay, our guitarist Richard was the door guy there. We jam in the afternoon in the 3rd floor, no insulation, so we're just burning up. We go outside and smoke 100 cigarettes. We'd keep jamming. We take a break. Richard would get off work as the bouncer at the Apollo at 2 a.m. and then we jam from 2:30 to 3:30 or 4. It was constant. So when you put in the work, like it feels great too to become almost obsessive. Not obsessive in a way where someone's going to take you outside and be like, hey, you're fucking up your family or anything. But
That's
when you're
the
that
line.
age,
but I do think it's good to be obsessive about it. But as long as it's not depreciating other parts of your life that you're going to require to maintain practice.
and as an adult, when you have bills, when you have payments, when you have a career that you really enjoy, and like my career is client based, so calling in sick is fun to a job but when you meet clients, you become friends with them. They have pain that you can help them with, and you have 5 in a day.
Yeah.
And I'm getting my really close friend, who's my secretary who's awesome. She doesn't need more stress in her life, calling these clients and being like, sorry, you can't see him for another 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm putting her in that position. I mean, I guess I could call them, but that's not my job. So I'm going to go through the chain of command. But, right? So it's like, you can't disrespect 5 individuals' times. They've taken off work. Maybe they have a babysitter, right? It's like they're paying for this. So when you have a client-based profession, I think it's even harder to call in sick, which I guess I'm just ranting about that because I want to call in sick.
Yeah.
I just want to be sick.
Yeah, that's where my labor gig
So
is the
sick.
dream gig.
Oh, you think so?
Well, making my own hours.
Yeah.
And then I can do
you?
everything else around it. Yeah.
Oh, that's
I wanna
awesome.
Do. Yeah.
Does everyone else get that privilege as well?
Yeah. As long as
Beautiful.
the work's getting done, it doesn't really matter.
And so, back to that. As long as the work's getting done. Doesn't really matter if you rise and grind at 5 a.m.
But in the summer, that's a great option to have because it gets so fucking hot.
Oh, no. I mean, there's an improvement. Or even when you do have a job like this one, last one I had, when you wake up at 6:30 in the morning, you get so much shit done. And
I
you eat
usually
properly.
do. I wake up an hour before I go in for 7:30, and man, I love having a routine.
But you also don't really drink alcohol, which is
makes
a
it a
huge
lot
bonus
easier.
for you.
Yeah.
Not drinking alcohol, you spring out of bed and you feel like $1 million, and you're like, "Fuck yeah!" And
Yeah.
I love to drink alcohol. So
Well, I find I'm able to really delegate time. Like you were talking about that precious 1 hour of each day you and Ryan had.
oh yeah,
I do that with
So
my
precious.
task all
Gave him a
throughout
little
the day.
kiss.
You know,
give him a kiss. No, for sure, absolutely.
like I'll have an hour for electric guitar, an hour for acoustic,
I
an
love
hour
that.
for beats.
I've tried that, and I wish, man, I will look down at my watch or my phone after I've practiced, and I'm like, that's been an hour. It's been like 10 minutes. I'm like, fuck. I wish, but I mean, quality over quantity, right?
I find it goes the other way sometimes though, where I'm
I like
I'm going to
that.
spend 45 minutes
Getting
and then
lost
it's
in
an
it.
hour and 45 minutes. And because you were just doing this one thing, I have to end on a good note. If I'm practicing
I have
anything,
the
my riff
exact
is
same
weak.
thing.
I will play it until I play it one good
Dude.
time and then call it quits.
There's a couple. That's pound 2. I have the exact fucking same thing, and this is back to that discussion about like getting good at drums. I would make my fucking hands bleed because I try to be like mimicking like Danny Carey from Tool or Joey Jordison from Slipknot, dudes that are 20 years ahead of me who are some of the best in the world. And you're like, I can do this. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna ask you this.
Yeah.
So I was just starting on drums, and Modern Drummer, which was the biggest drum magazine at the time, came out with his first cover piece about Joey from Slipknot.
Yep.
And I read the interview, and as I was reading it, I was like, I think I can do this. Like, I just fucking had confidence, and I knew. And I started playing, and I got really good fast. So I was always wondering, because I had that mindset, there wasn't even a shred of doubt. I was just like, I know that this is for me. I know I can do this. And that's not to sound arrogant or anything. You just know when you get your calling. And like drums are inherent and, integral to being a human, a heartbeat, a footstep, anything. So to have that belief and focus and then do it every day, and access, and parents that let me, which I fucking love my parents. It's just kind of cool to see what you can achieve. And then you see some people maybe believe in themselves but not have the skill, or have the skill but not believe in themselves.
For sure.
And you wonder, like, what could have been? And you're like, mind over matter, like, what is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm sure you've felt that way too. Everyone achieves different, varying levels of success, but it's really interesting, and I hope people get to experience that. And I don't know, because I haven't talked about this a lot, but it's like, to people around me, but it's like, is it normal for a human to find what they love, have the ability to practice it constantly, be determined, and be at that, pivotal age of not having bills, not having shit go down at home, being allowed to only focus on that?
Yeah.
I wonder if people have that normally. Did you have that at all?
No, things always felt like a huge struggle. I had a really chaotic childhood and teen years and stuff. But I will say that because things were chaotic, I neglected a lot of time I could have spent working on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't start really practicing my instrument seriously, I would say, until a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like making sure I'm putting in an hour every day, taking lessons regularly, things like that.
That's really inspiring. And you mentioned earlier today you had a lesson booked with Eric Renton, and that's like to continue to do lessons. I think that's super important too. Like I was so, I don't want to say egotistical because I was young, but I was so confident. I was like, I would always be like self-taught. I don't need anything. But then, okay, so here's the thing. When you are self-taught, you said it earlier, develop bad habits.
Yeah, I have a lot I'm still working out.
And then you get to it's like playing a video game where you don't do a really important part of the mission earlier, and then you get to this dead end. And the only way back is to go back. But you didn't save properly because it's on like Windows 95 and you got to start the whole game again.
Yep.
So I noticed in my playing, I developed terrible habits and I couldn't progress past this stage until I got some teacher or something and went back, deconstructed everything I was doing and built myself back in that way.
That's exactly what I have going on with pretty much all my musical
Which
endeavors.
is pretty humbling.
Oh, yeah.
And a little bit frustrating.
A little bit, but it does feel good just to be honest with yourself of something that you've neglected as part of your practice. It's hard to do. It's disillusioning, but you should do it. If you really want longevity, if you really want to be good.
So I've been like lucky enough to make a bunch of albums with really good players, and it's so funny to go back to shit I did when I was 19 on the drums and have to play songs again and be like, I don't play that way anymore. That was technically improper, but maybe it gave that music that sound because it's not really what someone does. Not saying it's better or worse, but it's not right. And then knowing what I know now, I'm way more balanced as a player, but to go back and play that shit, I'm like, oh, this is how I used to think. Like Andy from ETID has been on podcasts where he's like, dude, we go back to like Logic of Crocodiles. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And he's like, I can't play like my 19-year-old self anymore, which is good. You shouldn't, I guess, right? You should be moving forward. But it is humbling as a guy that's learned an instrument to be like, oh, maybe I can't, because you would think that everything you do is internalized and you can pull all these rabbits out of a hat, right? But it's like, no, you kind of move on. And if you don't practice this one feel or this one fill, you're probably going to lose it, which makes sense, really. There's a bunch of words I don't use anymore. There's a bunch of shit I don't eat anymore, right? So it's like, why would it not pertain to that as well?
Absolutely.
I guess,
I agree.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Fuck yeah, baby.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up there.
Let's fucking do it.
Okay, let's have a day. Thanks for being here, Josh.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to your beautiful girlfriend. Thanks to Vancouver for raining one day and being sunny one day.
That's right. That's classic.
I'm going to live here, baby.
Vancouver, baby.
Wait a sec. What about the rain to sun ratio? What would you say it is?
It was good all except for the winter.
Okay.
The winter, it drags that fucking rain, damp, gloom.
It was bone chilling today. Like, I felt it in my joints.
Oh, I feel it in my joints regularly.
Oh, by the way, I don't even have joints.
Yeah, but you'll just, for drumming and shit, probably the weather makes you notice you got to stretch your hands, stretch your feet.
Yeah, no, I led a stretch class at this job I had, and it was so funny because I would preach it. They gave us a video to learn how to instruct a class. So it's like 30 rich-ass dudes and chicks coming in to stretch in the morning. I kind of made my own program, but it really worked. But it was breath work, anatomy, lesson, and it was holding things. Because you hold it more than 15 seconds, and you breathe, right? So when I would do that every morning with them for half an hour, and I would feel fucking phenomenal. And then there were days I didn't do it, and I'm like, I'm a bag of shit. It's not that hard to stretch. What I'm saying on this closing note is stretch. Stretch your body.
Stretch everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye.